Hey everyone, and welcome to this video in which I'm going to explain to you what a web unblocker is and when you should use one. In the simplest terms, a web unblocker lets you bypass anti-bot systems, ones that stop you from scraping sites to be precise. It makes sure that not only your real IP address is hidden, but also that your web requests don't differ in any way from real internet user requests. It has smart features, which I will get to later, that allow you to successfully bypass even the most sophisticated anti-bot systems. So essentially, a web unblocker does much more than a proxy server alone will ever be capable of. If you run this basic Walmart scraping script a few times, Walmart will block you like this. Now, when you route this request through a web unblocker, it will decide what type of proxy to use and will use additional anti-detection techniques so that Walmart would think that it is just a regular shopper browsing the website. So, how does a web unblocker achieve this? Stay tuned as I will cover what exactly a web unblocker is, why use a web unblocker, getting started, scraping Walmart, and then finally ending with scraping Google. We're going to do this with Python and then with Node.js, so hopefully as many of you can follow along as possible. So let's get to it. Let's start off with looking at what exactly a web unblocker is. A web unblocker is an AI-powered proxy solution capable of bypassing complex anti-scraping measures by appearing like an organic user on a website. Now, there are many ways to appear like an organic user and unblock sites, but for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm going to be using Oxylab's web unblocker. So keep that in mind when I'm referring to the web unblocker in this explainer, as the features are specific to it. We are going to use Oxylabs as I am currently an official ambassador of the brand. So by clicking on the link below in the description, you are really helping out this channel as they can track the traffic from this video. We are going to bypass anti-bot systems with the help of Oxylab's dynamic fingerprinting technology and other advanced features. In order to look like a real user, the AI technology does a few things. First, it uses machine learning-driven proxy management. This feature evaluates which proxy types work the best on a specific target, and then it selects and rotates proxies that are likely to yield the highest success rate with the lowest response time possible. Next, it chooses the most suitable headers, cookies, and other browser parameters based on what you are trying to scrape. This feature is called dynamic browser fingerprinting. Then, it's time for machine learning-powered response recognition. Simply said, it determines the quality of the scraping results and passes this information to the next process in the web unblocking pipeline. If the scraping outcome is unacceptable, then the web unblocker automatically retries requests while simultaneously changing previously mentioned parameters until it successfully gets through the anti-bot system. Finally, if a website uses JavaScript rendering to load content dynamically, the user can instruct the web unblocker to run requests through a headless browser. On top of all this, it can access content worldwide, in 195 countries to be precise. This is possible as the Oxylabs web unblocker uses an ethically gathered proxy pool of more than 102 million IP addresses, so you can collect localized public data with ease. So imagine your proxies are getting blocked and you need to scrape Google search results from the United Kingdom while sitting at your desk in America. Easy! That's what the web unblocker can do. So we now know what a web unblocker is. Let's compare it to other options. The web unblocker we will be using is not just a standard proxy server, and it is not a complete web scraping framework. So why would you want to use it? To help you understand, I've created this table to compare proxies, a custom-built scraper, and the web unblocker we will be using today. First of all, proxy servers use proxy infrastructure, and the web unblocker uses an advanced proxy infrastructure, meaning they don't have web scraping and parsing capabilities. That is why users of both solutions have to have their own infrastructure ready. This is, in a way, similar to a custom web scraper, where you have to create your own scraping infrastructure. One major difference is that the proxy servers cannot render JavaScript content and cannot overcome fingerprinting methods like HTTP heading monitoring, browser fingerprinting, or TLS fingerprinting. When it comes to building a custom web scraper, you have to use libraries that enable the rendering of dynamic web pages, and you must build anti-bot evasion solutions by yourself, which requires immense technical knowledge and effort. Now, the web unblocker takes care of anti-bot evasion for you, out of the box, and it can also run requests through a headless browser in a single line of code. Another important aspect is that the proxies have the ability to overcome IP bans and captures. Yet, you have to implement further anti-bot evasion techniques in your infrastructure to be fully undetectable. When building a web scraper, all the same requirements apply, and you also have to purchase the type of proxies that suit your needs. The Web Unblocker, on the other hand, has all these features integrated, and it additionally retries requests automatically with different proxies and fingerprint combinations. What's good about modern proxies is that they typically come with automatic IP rotation, depending on the provider and proxy type. However, you must understand the different variations of proxies and how they impact scraping tasks. So, when using proxies, it's your responsibility to use them efficiently. This is similar to when you are creating a web scraper, as you should understand proxy intricacies, but if your chosen proxy types don't have automatic IP rotation and health monitoring, you must rotate IPs and monitor their health yourself. In comparison, the Web Unblocker does all this automatically under the hood. You can draw some similarities between proxy servers and the Web Unblocker when it comes to geo-targeting capabilities. With proxies, it all relies on the provider you choose and the proxy type you purchase. With the Web Unblocker, however, you get access to more than 102 million IP addresses located in all 195 countries, with the ability to get localized content on a country, city, or even coordinate level. In comparison, a custom-built web scraper must use proxy servers to access different geolocations. And finally, all these different aspects directly affect the success rate of each solution. A proxy server enables better success rates but lacks the power to bypass difficult anti-scraping systems. A web scraper's success solely depends on you and whether you integrate proxies and use anti-fingerprinting methods. Now, the Web Unblocker has all the power to overcome detection and provides much higher success rates when compared to proxies. So, why use the Web Unblocker? It's simple: to significantly ease the unblocking process and increase the success of your scraping operations. The Web Unblocker is especially a lifesaver in cases where you don't have the resources or knowledge to build a scraper to access websites that use sophisticated anti-scraping techniques. As a matter of fact, it may actually save you financial resources in the long run, as you don't have to maintain a complex infrastructure. You can just build a basic scraper in Python with the requests and beautiful soup and have the Web Unblocker do the heavy lifting for you. Okay, so now that we know that, let's look at how to retrieve data from a site that uses a sophisticated anti-bot system. Okay, so let's get to it. First off, I'm going to show you how to build a normal web scraper that will scrape pretty much anything apart from really difficult sites like Walmart, Amazon, and Google, because you will get blocked by their anti-bot systems. So I'm going to show you that and show you how we are getting blocked, and then show you how to get around it using the Web Unblocker. So let's do it. Let's head over to the Oxylab dashboard and register an account. You can find the dashboard link in the description below, so just go ahead and click on that so we're at the same place. On the overview page, under the proxies tab, select Web Unblocker and then click Get Started. This will open the pricing page where you can click on the Start Free Trial button. Read the terms and conditions, accept them and continue. This will bring you back to the overview page where you can select My Products. Now, create the username and password credentials that you will use to make the request via Web Unblocker. And that's it. Now let's go back to the dashboard. Here is the dashboard that you are going to see. So I'm just going to walk you through it. You will see all the products available, and then you've also got your account where you can see the settings as well as more information on the products. So great, let's get to it. No time to waste. Let's get up our code editors and our terminal. So I'm going to create a project that's going to hold a Python file. So let's do it. So first off, I'm just going to create a new project. I'm going to do it in my development directory. So I'm just going to go into that and use the command mkdir on Macs to create a project, which I'm going to call Web Unblocker. Now let's go into Web Unblocker. I'm just going to open it up in VS Code using the code.command that I have pre-installed. However you get your projects going, please meet me at this point based on whatever code editor you are using or whatever operating system. Great. So here we are now. I'm just in the project and I'm just going to create a file, just a simple script file. So I'm going to call it script.py as we're going to be working with Python. So just make that a little bit bigger for you. Okay. And now I'm going to import a package. It's going to be called requests. So just do the same. And then the URL, well, we're going to specify the URL here. So I'm going to come back to that as a string. And next, we are just going to define some headers that we need to pass through into our web scraper. So the first header we're going to pass through, well, we're going to pass through the user agent, and we're going to leave that blank for now because we're going to come back to this. And the next one we're going to pass through, the next attribute is accept language. And again, I'm going to come back to this. So there we go. That's all the headers that we need. And now let's actually make the request. So I'm going to save the response to the variable response, and then I'm going to use requests, so the import requests, and it's going to be a get method, and I'm just going to pass through the URL and the custom headers as the headers. Great, just make sure to spell that correctly. Now I'm going to just print the response and get the text from it. So whoops, let's just make sure that is spelled correctly, and wonderful. So we are nearly there. Let's just pass through the accepted languages. I'm going to put English, the US version, as well as English, the UK version. And then for the user agent, I'm just going to paste this. Okay, so here is what you need to pass through. Don't worry, I'll be adding the code to this in the video description below in case you can't copy this out. But for all of you copying from the video, here it is. So you can type out. Please pause if you need and go back and forward in the video until yours looks the same. Great. So now let's go ahead and get the URL we want to scrape. Like I said, we're going to be scraping Walmart. So just head over to Walmart and I'm going to choose to scrape games. So in the search, I'm going to write games, and this constructs the URL that we need that we're going to essentially scrape. Okay, of course you can scrape whatever you want. I'm just choosing to scrape games. So now that we have that, I'm just going to install that package using pip3 install. Hopefully you guys have set up your terminals to use Python. So if you have, this should work. And if not, please go ahead and set up your terminals to be able to use the pip3 command. So there we go. That has now imported the requests package. And now if we run this script by pressing this little play button right here, we should get all of the HTML from that site. Amazing. Okay. So there we go. So we have now built just a simple scraper that scrapes sites, but will get blocked by certain bigger websites like Walmart if we make too many requests. So if we go ahead and press the play button right here, okay, and do this a few times, we should get blocked. So how do we go about this? Well, to go about this and bypass anti-bot systems, such as the ones Walmart, Amazon, and Google have, we're going to use the web unblocker. And it's super simple. We're just going to add a few more lines of code to what we have written so far. Okay, so let's do it. I'm just going to write an object. I'm going to save it under the variable proxies. And the first attribute is going to be for the HTTP address. And it's just going to be HTTPS. And we're going to get our username and password. So back on the dashboard under my products, just go onto Web Unblocker, and under users, you should have a username and a password. Now you can change your password here if you have forgotten it, but I have not. So that is where you'd find your username and password. Let's just go back to here and paste the username, followed by the colon, and then the password that you have, and then at unblock.oxylabs.io 60,000, comma, and then just copy the whole thing and do the same but for HTTPS. Okay, so just add in that S there, and we are good to go. Great. So that's what it looks like. Let's continue. So now let's also pass through the proxies into the request. So just pass it through above here. So I'm just going to space this out. So proxies, and then verify equals false, and we are golden. So now let's run this. So I'm just going to run that script again. Okay, so just press that play button here, and amazing. We get all of the HTML and we are not getting blocked. Great. Now I'm just going to take this tutorial a step further and show you how to actually get certain values out of this HTML. I'm going to show you how to do it just with one title, and then hopefully you can use the same approach in order to get all the information that you need. So in order to do this, we are going to use another package called BS4. So I'm just going to first off write the code for this. So we're going to write a variable called soup and then use the BS4 package and a method from it called beautiful soup. Okay, and then just pass through the response and the text. So everything we just saw in the terminal. Next, I'm just going to pass through the string LXML. Okay, now let's go ahead and get what we want out of the text. So I'm just going to grab a product title, just one product title. So let's go ahead and define product title, and I'm going to use soup find in order to find it from all the HTML. So the title we're going to look for is the first one here. So let's just inspect the element that holds this title, and the element that holds this title is in fact let's have a look. It is a span element. So we're going to look for a span that also has a specific attribute. So in this case, it's the ID of product title that I'm going to be looking for in all of the HTML. So let's look for a span, and let's look for a span that has, I think it was the ID. Let's go back to this, the ID of product title. So that's what we are looking for, and we're just going to essentially get that element that we saved as product title and get the text from inside it using the getText method. So that's what we are going to do. Okay, let's just go ahead and install BS4, the package that we are using. So just like that, which means we now need to import it into the file. So I'm simply going to import BS4 like so. Okay, so that's all I am doing. And we also need to install LXML. So let's go ahead and do that, making sure it's pip3. So just install that too. So that is the string that we wrote. Okay, and great. So now let's look back at the code. Okay. This should actually be, this is a custom attribute, not an ID. As you can see here, it's custom. So in order to get a custom attribute, we simply have to write ATTRS and then pass that through like so. And now we can define the custom attribute for that element. And it was data automation ID, and just get rid of that equal sign right there and replace it. Okay, wonderful. Now let's run this code, and ta-da! We get the specific title. So that's how you would get certain text out of the HTML. Please use this, use the package BS4, do your own research on it. You can find specific elements, you can find all elements, and so on. Just head over to the documentation right here. So great, we have now successfully scraped Walmart using Python. I'm going to show you how to scrape using Node.js, so JavaScript next. So let's do it. Okay, so this time I'm going to use a different code editor. This is WebStorm, just to differentiate. So first off, I've just gone ahead and created a new directory, again called Web Unblocker. And now let's get up our terminal, making sure that we are in Web Unblocker. And I'm just going to type npm init to initialize a backend, essentially, to initialize a Node.js project. So by typing npm init and just going enter through all the default questions, it's going to spin up a package JSON file for me. So there it is. Okay, this is just the default stuff. We don't need to change much. We just need to add a type so that we can use imports in the file. So type, and then we're going to put modules, and this will allow us to have imports in the index.js file we are about to make. Okay, so make sure that's there. And now let's go ahead and create that file. It's going to be a JavaScript file, which is going to be called index. So there we go. It's an index.js file. Now we can use the import keyword thanks to the types module. And I'm going to import fetch from the package node fetch. Okay, so that is something you would also need to do. Again, I can use import thanks to the type module. And now we're also going to import HTTPS proxy agent from HTTP proxy agent. So those are two packages that you're going to need to install. And if you go to package.json after they've installed, you will see them there along with their versions. So if anything's not working and you're watching this in the future, it could be down to the package you are using. Just make sure to have yours the same as me. Great. So now let's continue. I'm going to define the username and password that we're going to need to pass through into the proxies just as we did before. Okay, so I'm going to leave those empty, and next let's define the agent. So I'm going to use the import, so make sure that is spelled correctly, is HTTPS proxy agent, which we're importing from the package HTTPS proxy agent. And now we're just going to pass through a few things into this constructor. So the things that we're going to pass through into this constructor is a URL that I need to construct, HTTP, and we're going to use the username constant. So making sure that obviously this is in backtick so we can pick up the code, and we define this as code by using the $ and curly braces. Then we get out of that code, we use the colon and then password, and then put at unblock.oxylabs.io 60,000. Okay, so just like we did before, we just constructed the same URL. Great. Now we just need to put in some code. So process env, node TLS, reject and authorize, and just put through a 0 there. This essentially makes TLS connections and HTTPS requests insecure by disabling certificate verification. And now let's get our response. So we're going to define the response as the const response, and we're going to await fetch as it's an asynchronous method. And we're going to just pass through the URL that we want to essentially scrape, followed by an object, which we're going to define the method as get. Even though we probably don't need to do this, the fetch method already has a default action of get. And then we're also going to pass through the agent that we just made. So there we go. Wonderful. So now let's console log out the response. I'm just going to await it. Okay, so await response and get its text from it. So that's what we're going to do. Now let's get the URL that we want to scrape. So we're going to scrape Google, okay? And again, we are going to scrape Google for games. So that is the URL that we're going to do. So this is just the same as me going to Google and searching for games as you would in your browser like this. Okay, that's what we're going to scrape. So let's do it. Okay, before we move on though, I'm just going to pass through the username and password. It's the same that we had before. So here is mine and here is my password. Please fill in yours here as mine will not work for you. Now let's run this script. So I'm going to run this script by getting up the terminal and typing node index.js, and ta-da! We get the HTML for that page. Here we have it. It's just the same as we did with Python. And if you want to pick stuff out of here, you would do it with the same approach as we did for Python. Okay, so you'd look for certain elements in here and get the text from it. And just to prove that we have scraped this HTML, we're going to look for this piece of text. So let's copy it and let's find it in here. So I'm just going to search for that. And there we go. Great. So great. Hopefully now you know how to scrape pages using Web Unblocker and bypassing anti-bot systems in a super simple and easy way. Okay, so I hope you learned something useful today. As a recap, here is what we covered in this video. We looked at what exactly a web unblocker is. We compared proxies to custom web scrapers to the web unblocker, and then we actually signed up and used the actual web unblocker to scrape Walmart and Google using the Oxylabs web unblocker specifically. If you would like to read up more about the web unblocker we were using today in this video, please do visit the developer documentation via the link below.